Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, TDOT. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Before we get into the content, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And of course, we're talking about the Champions League game from last night. Chelsea 2, Lille 0. Well, what a performance that was. Let's start with the most obvious thing that a lot of people have been talking about. Obviously, Romelu Lukaku was dropped from the team. Can't say I'm surprised. 7 touches against Crystal Palace. I think Kai Havertz had about 8 within the first 15, but we'll get onto Kai Havertz after. But in terms of Romelu Lukaku, Thomas Tuchel for me made the right choice not playing him. I thought, you know, it was a game that I think had Romelu Lukaku played in and not done well, it would have been a massive question mark around Thomas Tuchel, and a lot of questions would have been asked. Why is he still playing? Why is he still part of the team? He's not playing. He's not, you know, the team you should be picking is based on merit, you know, based on performances, based on who's currently playing very well. That is Kai Havertz, that is Hakim Ziyech, Kovacic and Kante, you know, those kind of players that we saw yesterday. But for Romelu Lukaku to still start would have been a massive question mark, I think, for a lot of Chelsea fans. But for me personally, you know, I was very impressed with the squad that did start. Let's talk about the positives. You know, the team that started, you know, you look at the team that we had out, it was brilliant. You know, the front football that we played, the fluidity that we showed, the movement on and off the ball, it just clicked. You know, we looked like a totally different team, very similar to the, dare I say, the Champions League final against Man City. That kind of winning mentality, the movement was brilliant, you know. And I think we sometimes, and again, this is going back to Lukaku when he was injured earlier in the season, we got to see a lot more of that, and we forgot what it was like to see, you know, flowing football and being able to do something with the ball and runs and people picking up the right passes and things like that. So I was impressed, you know. I was impressed with Kai Havertz. I think he had 2 early chances within 10 minutes to potentially make it 2-0. He was unfortunate not, I mean, he should be scoring the first one for sure, but I think he definitely had a lot of opportunity in that game. He showed a lot of character, and it's a difficult game to come into because obviously you look at the pressure that Romelu Lukaku's under. The expectation is for you to do better than the player that's currently playing bad. So, you know, he took the game by the scruff of the neck, and then obviously to get an early goal, a set piece, unmarked as well, which is, for me, was very strange because, you know, you look at Kai Havertz, he's someone that you know is going to be a threat in the box as well. So not to mark him was silly of Lille, but of course, you know, in terms of Lille, I don't know. I don't think they really, no, they didn't really make any, you know, clean cut chances for themselves. They didn't. I think they had 2 shots on target. Someone told me earlier on this morning that one of the balls that from a shot that they taken ended up on the roof of the shed. And so I think that kind of tells you the kind of performance that Lille were coming in from. You know, I think they're 10th or 11th in their domestic league. You know, they've won the league not so long ago, but just in terms of how they're playing domestically, I didn't expect a massive game from them. I did call 2-0 in the previous video. If you haven't watched that, make sure you do. We're joined by the Couch Critic. Very good episode. But just in terms of the prediction, you know, I did say 2-0 because I thought that defensively, if we played 5 at the back, I did think we were going to be able to cope with whatever Lille brought to us, and we did that easily. And I thought if we don't play Lukaku, which I said we wouldn't, you know, I did think we were going to be able to create a lot more chances, which we did. So let's get straight into the player ratings for the game, which I think will give us an idea. And obviously, guys, as I'm doing this, comment in the section below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you disagree with these, because I think, you know, I've gone for what I think I would give the player ratings for, but I'm sure, you know, anyone watching this may give different ones. So let me know your thoughts around that as well. But let's start with Edouard Mendy. For me, I gave him an 8, and this is probably very generous to Mendy, because I think, you know, he didn't necessarily have too much to do. He didn't necessarily need to, you know, make any drastic saves, or he didn't have to, you know, he wasn't bombarded with shots, he wasn't under pressure. There was none of that. It was just a case of, you know, whatever he needed to deal with, he dealt with in a way that was you know, easy for him to do so. Like I said, you know, I think there was 2 shots on target from Lille, so they didn't really work Mendy at all. Kept it very easy for him, which was, you know, it was impressive. You know, I think we needed to keep as a clean sheet in that game going into the second leg as well. Obviously, away goals don't matter anymore, but I think just in terms of keeping it to 2-0 or whatever the scoreline was going to be, keeping a clean sheet for me was crucial, and we did that. So I gave Mendy an 8 out of 10 for that. Now Cesar Azpilicueta, I feel harsh giving him a 6. I feel harsh because I feel like he didn't necessarily play bad. He didn't play bad at all, actually. But what we are seeing with Cesar Azpilicueta is the back-to-back games that he's playing, and this is only down to the fact that Reece James is potentially injured. So the back-to-back games he's playing, obviously he played at Crystal Palace as well, and we are seeing obviously the age of him now. We're seeing that the legs aren't really there anymore. You know, as the game progressed, you kind of saw that he wasn't getting forward as much, and I mean that's not a criticism to him, but I just think, you know, he's been a brilliant servant to the club, and I think it'd be a shame to lose him as well. I think he's someone that, for me personally, I'd love to keep at the club and make sure that, you know, we keep him for at least another year, maybe 2. But I do think throughout games, and obviously when Reece James comes back, this won't really be an issue. But the amount of games he's been asked to play because of those injuries, and obviously we've had makeshift right wing backs in there, but to play this many games, it's taking its toll on the Azpilicueta, and you can kind of see that. You know, he looks shattered at the end of the games, but nonetheless, you know, I thought he played really well. He did, you know, he done what he needed to do again. He kept a lot of that sort of play down the left side for Lille down that side there, quiet. You know, they weren't able to do anything that side of the pitch, which, you know, shows the experience of Azpilicueta. So I was impressed with him. You know, I gave him a 6 out of 10. Didn't think he put a foot wrong at all. So I think for me, it's just obviously the age, the tiredness that you can kind of see throughout the game for him. But that's a lot of football that he's played in the last couple of weeks or so. So it's to be expected as well. But moving over to Andreas Christensen, who, again, I don't think had a bad game. I don't think Christensen had a bad game. There wasn't any signs of him making any mistakes. You know, you've got someone like THIAGO SIlVA next to you. You know, you're playing alongside Rudigo as well. I just think he's someone that is going to develop if he stays at the club, and it'd be a shame to lose him, because I think he's such a you know, he's obviously a long servant at the club. You know, he's come through the ranks, and you know, he's someone that is developed a lot over the last couple of seasons, and that's only going to get better with the fact you've got THIAGO SIlVA by your side. Him and, you know, Trevor Chalobah are 2 players for me that will learn a lot from, not just Silva but Rudigo as well, should Rudigo stay as well. But in terms of the game, I don't think Christensen again put a foot wrong. I thought he done really well. They kept that line between the 5 of them at the back when they needed to, and I just thought there was a lot of communication between him and Silva, and it worked well. You know, it was a brilliant performance from Christensen. I gave him a 7 out of 10. Didn't really put a foot wrong, like I said. So now moving on to, for me, arguably one of my man of the matches, THIAGO SIlVA, who I thought was, I mean, let's start properly actually. THIAGO SIlVA, 37 years of age, playing in the top level football, playing at the elite level of football that he can play at 37 years of age, shows you, because he's not the fastest centre back. He's not going to out sprint you. You know, he's not going to keep up with a Mo Salah or you know, a fast pace Mbappe. He's not going to keep up with those sort of plays. But what he does do, and he does this very, very well, and there was, you know, numerous times yesterday that he did this, was he's able to read the game very well, and he does it in a way that, you know, as a footballer, you would expect you can read the game, whether you play defence, attacking, midfield, wherever, the goalkeeper. But he does it in such a way that he can anticipate what is going to happen before it's happened. And to be able to do that is why he's still able to play at the level that he can play at, and still play consistently. You know, he hasn't put a foot wrong. I think back to the West Brom game at the Hawthorns, and, you know, there's a lot of people, a lot of ex players and other fans saying, you know, that he's finished, he can't play at this level, we've signed a dud, you know, that's why we got him on a free. You know, he hasn't put a wrong, I don't think he's put a foot wrong since that West Brom game, you know, a couple of seasons ago now. So I think he's for me, 9 out of 10, arguably one of the man of the matches. And a performance that, you know, you think about some of the tackles that he put in yesterday, and some of the blocks. I think there was one opportunity, I think, in the first half, and you know, it was block after block. You know, he's just there. He's like a wall. So for me, for me, Thiago Silva, the fact we've got him for another, you know, for another season, is brilliant. You know, I think shows how committed he is, not just to Chelsea. The fans love him. He seems like his family love the living in London, the London lifestyle as well. So, you know, I think he's someone that if we can keep him injury free, I could see him probably staying for another year, you know. And this goes back to my issue around, or my comment around Christensen and Rudigo. You know, if we do lose either one of them or both of them, I mean, what a centre-back to build your defence around Thiago Silva. You know, if you can bring in a Kunde or whoever it is that we bring in, what a player to build that centre-back role, you know, that back three or back four, whatever it is, to build around. Because he's just someone that you can see that he's talking to, you know, both centre-backs. You know, he's just someone that keeps everything in control all the time. You don't really see him panicking. He's just brilliant. And 9 out of 10 for Silva, which leads me on to Antonio Rudigo. Now, Antonio Rudigo for me has definitely developed on with the fact that he's got Thiago Silva beside him. I think he's definitely massively improved. I don't think he was a bad centre back beforehand, but I think you see signs now where he feels more comfortable going forward with the ball. He wants to take the ball as far up the field as he can. He wants to get a shot off if he can, if it's possible, and he does that really well. And I think he does that knowing that he's got someone like Thiago Silva covering his area, the likes of N'Golo Kante who can cover that area, Alonso who can potentially fill in that gap as well. But Antonio Rudigo, again, you know, no qualms with him. You know, he done really well. Again, Lille didn't really make that many chances, so it's hard to give the defenders anything really much to say. But I thought he done what he needed to do defensively. Like I said, he loves to get forwards. He made some really key runs moving forward with the ball throughout the game, and I was impressed with him. You know, I think if we lose Rudiger, I think it will be a massive loss. I think he's come on leaps and bounds. I think the contract situation will get resolved. I think we'll get him on the dotted line. I think that won't be a problem, but I do think if we lose him and Christensen, at first I was worried, but you look at Thiago Silva, potentially who might come in and play alongside him. You know, we've got players that are out on loan that can do that job as well. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we need to consider with Rudiger. But for me, you know, 8 out of 10 performance, I wasn't disappointed in him. I think he played really well. Marcos Alonso. Yeah, Marcos Alonso is someone that when I watched him yesterday, one part of my mind was already thinking about Mo Salah, was thinking about Harvey Elliott, Sadio Mane, and just thinking about all the space that Marcos Alonso leaves behind him. And the amount of opportunities that Lille had to, especially in the first half, when I spoke earlier about Lille sort of building into the game in that first half, the second half of it, you know, a lot of that came from that side of the pitch, you know, that right side. Marcos Alonso switching off every now and again. He was getting cooked in the first half, if we're being honest. You know, he was really, you know, he just didn't. I mean, going forward is brilliant. You know, he can whip a good ball and he can cross a good ball. You know, he had a couple of chances where he could have potentially scored, but defensively is what worries me. You know, and I think if we, you know, you look at the Club World Cup when Callum Hudson-Odoi played there, you know, it kind of tells you, you know, that Tuchel doesn't necessarily trust him 100% in the final when you need to win the Club World Cup and you're playing Callum Hudson-Odoi. But I do think Alonso played okay offensively in the game yesterday. Defensively, too much space behind him, too much switching off, exposing, you know, Lille basically exposed the weakness in our team, and I think that was Alonso. And I think, you know, coming up against a Mo Salah on Sunday, it's going to be a whole different game. It's going to be a lot more difficult. And if it is Alonso that's playing there, you know, he's going to have a lot of his work cut out for Mo Salah, who we know loves to run at defenders, loves to make things difficult. So I gave him a 6 out of 10. It could have been a lot less if I'm being real. You know, I think he it's a tough one with him, because I think, like I said, offensively he's really good, but defensively just not at the races against Lille, and it was exposed a number of times. So unfortunately for them, or lucky for us, they just couldn't capitalize on the mistakes being made on that side of the pitch. But moving into midfield, Mateo Kovacic, I was impressed with. Up until the injury, I thought he played really well. Some key passes that he loves to put in, as always. The work rate is always there. He doesn't really stop. He's always consistently trying to push the ball forward up the field as well, as opposed to passing sideways or passing back. So I was impressed with Kovacic. It was a shame, because I think, a player that's hit brilliant form. I think back to the Liverpool game earlier on in the season in the Premier League, and I think back to that game and how well he played in that game, and the goal that he scored, and then how he's gone on to keep that momentum, keep that form going. There's never a good time to get an injury as a footballer, but before a cup final, when you're in really good form, it's probably the worst time to pick up an injury. It didn't look good. It looked like he was he was in a lot of discomfort, whatever the injury is. I'm sure Tuchel will update us in his press conference later this week, but he didn't look very good. I'd be very surprised if we see him, in the cup final, because it just didn't look very good for him at all. Straight down a tunnel, to try and potentially go and get some treatment for whatever the injury is. So up until the game, I thought he was a 6 out of 10. He could have probably gone higher than that. But, for what he played in that game, for me, definitely 6 out of 10 was probably, the right call, I think, for what he did in the game. But let's move over to N'Golo Kante, who I thought was... N'Golo Kante is probably... Now, there was a lot of talk early in the week about N'Golo Kante and whether N'Golo Kante, if we sell him, because obviously his contract's coming to an end in 2023, do we sell him before his contract's up to try and get a bit of money? And the question that I'm going to ask you guys, and please, if you watch this, comment in the section below, is there anyone that can seriously play as good as N'Golo Kante on his day as well? Because I think yesterday we got to see N'Golo Kante at his best, at what he does best: tracking back, winning the ball, getting the ball, moving the ball forward. The runs that he makes for a player that isn't necessarily known for his pace. Look, when we lost Claude Makelele, some of you guys might not even remember how good Claude Makelele was. He was a player that was so good they named a role after him. But Claude Makelele, when he left, there was a massive void in that midfield, a massive void. And I feel like if we was to bring in anyone who we've been linked with, a lot of talk about Declan Rice and all these other players that we're linked with, and are very good players. They're not players that I'm saying wouldn't fit into the team. I'm not saying that they're not world class or they're not of a good level. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, are they as good as N'Golo Kante? If they're not, we have a player already in the team that can do what all these other players that we're talking about can do, in my opinion. And you look at the goal. There was a chance in the first half. I think it was Hakim Ziyech was making a run. N'Golo Kante's got the ball. Now, the only thing I will say about N'Golo Kante sometimes is that the amount of time that he holds onto the ball before he makes the pass kind of is my only gripe with him at the moment. Like, there's times in that game, I think, like I said, Hakim Ziyech made a perfect run in the first half, very early on in the game, and N'Golo Kante held onto the ball 1 or 2 seconds too much and just delayed the pass. But he made up for that. If you look at the way that he picked up the ball in his own half, ran with the ball, covered all that ground, the speed to do that, and to pick it up from, like I said, in his own half, and to find Pulisic, who he timed the pass to perfection. Pulisic timed the run to perfection. And the goal wasn't easy, by the way. That was a really difficult goal to score from Christian Pulisic. But N'Golo Kante does so much off the ball that goes unnoticed, because I think we just expect it from N'Golo Kante. We expect him to do these things, but he does it to perfection too often to lose him in a team, which a lot of our football, our build-up play comes from the midfield. And I think we really, I know there's a lot of sort of like reactionary Twitter fans and all of these people that just talk for the sake of talking on Twitter. But if we lose N'Golo Kante, I do think we will. That is a massive void. That is almost as bad as saying we're going to lose a Thiago Silva, or the times when we lost Makalele, when we lost Cesc Fabregas, when we lost Diego Costa, when we lost Didier Drogba. All these players that are just too good to be given to another club. Whether they pay 100 million, 200 million for Kante, I don't think there's any money in this world that is you could give to Chelsea to take N'Golo Kante off Chelsea's hands. He's too good, in my opinion. So that was my man of the match. Basically, is N'Golo Kante. 9 out of 10. I think he, again, from the whole game, from kickoff to the final whistle, didn't put a foot wrong and played the game to perfection. But let's move over to the front three. As I mentioned, you know, Christian Pulisic. What a game. You know, he's had a very up and down career with Chelsea. He hasn't always played the best. He's been in and out of the team. He's had a couple of injuries as well. But to see him playing in the way that he did last night, in that more suitable, familiar role for him as well. He likes to cut in at times, and he loves to take on defenders. He likes to run, make a lot of space. And, you know, the front three that we had last night, you know, Pulisic, Havertz, Ziyech, it made the defense, it made Lille's defense very difficult to pick up who was playing where. And I think, you know, when you do that, you look at like a City who don't play with an out-and-out striker. You know, it's difficult for teams and defenders to pick up the players because the movement is too much. And we saw that yesterday. We've seen there was moments when, you know, Pulisic has got the ball, linking it up with Havertz. Havertz just switching with Pulisic and, you know, linking up with Kovacic as well. Ziyech as well. There was so much movement, and we missed that. There was no fluidity with Lukaku in the team. We got to see a lot of that with Christian Pulisic. I thought he played really well. He tracked back tracked back when he needed to track back as well. He was impressive. You know, I gave him an 8 out of 10. Potentially could have been a bit more because he scored a really difficult goal. I think once the pass is through from N'Golo Kante, there's still a lot of work for Christensen to do to make sure he gets that on target. I can't remember which defender it is, but there's someone on his back. The goalkeeper's rushing out for the ball. It's a very well taken goal to lift it over the goalkeeper the way that he did. Wasn't sure about the celebration. I'll leave that for the youngsters to explain that one for me. I did try and do a little Google. I think it's called a griddy dance. I don't know what that means, but yeah, youngsters might be able to tell me what that is. So 8 out of 10 for Christian Pulisic. Now let's move over to Kai Havertz, who I've kind of touched on already. 8 out of 10. Again, look, Kai Havertz did not put a foot wrong in this game. He played to perfection. He looked like a quality player. He's one of those players for me that has potentially realised that there is an opportunity for him to make a claim for a first team regular place in the squad. You look at the likes of Hakim Ziyech now, who's potentially injured. Christian Pulisic, who also limped off after before the game was finished as well. We have to remember. Lukaku out of form. Timo Werner doesn't look like he's you know, in contention to be part of the squad next season. Kai Havertz has kind of stepped up when it matters. You know, you look at the Club World Cup, you look at the Champions League, you look at all the other games where he's played. He's potentially stepped up and he's been effective in all those games. So, is he a player that's going to score you know, 20 goals, 25 goals? I don't think so. Is he going to be the one that wins us the Premier League? I don't think so. I still think there's a lot of quality that's needed in that final third of the pitch. You know, there's still a lot, but Kai Havertz is a massive key of that. I think he's someone that can unlock a lot of things for us offensively. I think when he plays, there's a lot more pace, aggressiveness towards trying to score, and it's just, for me, it's just a player that we can't afford to lose. We need to play to his strengths rather than Lukaku's strengths, in my opinion. You look at the runs that he makes into the box. Hakim Ziyech is looking up. You can see that he's in the box. He's made the run to perfection. There's just so much more that I think Havertz offered us in that game against Lille than we've seen in the past couple of games with Romelu Lukaku up front. Whether that's a tactical thing, I don't know, but there's things that Kai Havertz was doing that I would expect a striker of any quality, any price tag would and should be doing. So for me, Kai Havertz, potentially again, maybe I've underrated him. Maybe I should have gave him a bit more, but I've gave him an 8 out of 10. I think he deserved that. I think he played very well. Like I said, he could have had a hat-trick in the game. He had 2 very early chances. He got the goal, and he had a couple as well after that. So, you know, I think for me, my only, I suppose, criticism of Kai Havertz is to find the back of the net a bit more. And I think if he does that, then he's an all-round, you know, the all-round package that we need up front. You know, he's one of those players that can score, can take on players, he can hold up the ball, he knows how to pick out a good pass, he makes brilliant runs and creates a lot of space as well. So for me, again, you know, a very, very good performance from Kai Havertz. Hakim Ziyech, again, a guy that is jinxed. He is jinxed. When he plays well, he gets injured. It's known, you know, so it's a known thing. You know, like I mentioned, the Brighton game, pre-season, he got injured. The Super Cup, he gets injured. He's been playing arguably his best football consistently back to back in a Chelsea shirt for as long as I can remember. And again, injury. So it looked pretty bad. It looked like an injury that potentially again didn't look good. He tried to play through it, and he couldn't. You know, he had to go down, come off. It'd be a shame to lose him for the cup final, because I think he's been a massive part of the last couple of games. You know, coming up, scoring goals when it matters, playing really well in the Club World Cup as well. So it's a massive, more so maybe than Kovacic, but I think it's a massive loss if we lose him, because I think we've finally got to see a bit of consistency with Kai Havertz and Hakim Ziyech playing in that front three, and to lose him would be a shame. Obviously, we're slowly seeing Mason Mount coming back into the team after his injury as well. So you'd expect if Hakim Ziyech isn't fit, maybe Mason Mount fills in that role. But it is a shame for him. I think he's played really well over the last couple of games. But I gave him a 7 out of 10 because I thought before the game, before he came off during the game, I think he was playing really well. So 7 out of 10 for Hakim Ziyech, who, in my opinion, is someone that was definitely a massive performer in the team. But there was obviously some players that made the bench and came on. So let's have a quick look at them as well. So we've got who we're starting with. Let's talk with Malang Sarr. Now, for me, Malang Sarr, it's difficult because he came on, I think, 80 minutes into the game. He didn't really have enough time to impact the game at all. Came on and just, you know, almost just done what he needed to do. You know, there's obviously an ask of him from Tuchel, don't let the other team score. He did that. So I think it'd be unfair to sort of mark him any less than a 4. You know, he didn't really have much impact, but that's not to say that he didn't play well when he came on. I think he did. It was just the timing that he came on. Now, Saul Niguez, I was definitely impressed with Saul Niguez. I thought he played really, really well. Again, a player that is kind of in and out the team, but, you know, to see him get some minutes was important for him, for the team. Just gave some players a bit of a rest as well before the final on Sunday. I've gave him a 6 out of 10 because I think, you know, he was getting forward when it mattered, made some very crucial passes, but one of the key things that I did notice about him when he lost possession, the first thing on his mind was winning the ball back, you know, getting the ball back, tackling, winning that ball, flying in to make sure he gets that, to make sure that he gets the ball back somehow. And I think, you know, it's a shame for Saul Niguez because I don't think we've seen the best of him at Chelsea, and I don't think we will. I think, you know, if we're being honest, I think he's one of those players that weren't, you know, we won't buy him. I think we've got the option to buy him, but I think we just won't. I think there's other options out there that Tuchel's potentially happy with. I don't think Tuchel was necessarily happy to bring him in. It was maybe just he's there, he's available, let's take him, and we did that. But I just don't think we've seen enough of Saul Niguez to be able to say that he should and will stay at the club over the next couple of months and the rest of the season. But yeah, you know, I can see him going back, you know, to Atletico and end of the season and finding another club if it's not staying at Atletico. But 6 out of 10 for Saul Niguez for me. Now, one player that did impress me was Reuben Loftus-Cheek, who I was very, very impressed with. Now, I think this might be just down to the fact that he was playing slightly deeper in the midfield as opposed to, you know, other games he's come on. He's played a bit more of an attacking midfield role, and I just don't think that role suits him. I don't think he's very good at decision making. I don't think he's able to unlock defenses or be a bit creative in linking up with that front 3 or front 2. So to see him playing more deeper and playing in a role that necessarily suits him a bit more, for me, made a lot more sense. He looked more comfortable on the ball, solid. He was picking out the right passes. He just looked overall like a good player. My only worry with Reuben Loftus-Cheek is he's one of those players to me that if he stays at the club next season, it's a make or break season for him at Chelsea. I think if he doesn't break through to the team where he's constantly, you know, a name that you can't really miss off the team sheet, or you miss him when he's not in the team. If he's not one of those players, and I don't think he will be, there's a massive question. Is he good enough? Does he need to move to another club? You look at the likes of Lewis Baker, who went on numerous loans and, you know, tried to force his way into the team when Tuchel came in and ended up back in the reserves, and then has gone to Stoke. You know, he's never really hit the ground running at Chelsea. And Reuben Loftus-Cheek, to give him credit, has had 2 massive injuries, you know, throughout his career at Chelsea. So it is a massive thing to try and come back from. I'd love to see him playing in that role that he played yesterday. I would love to see him playing a bit more there, and just give a bit more of that sort of deep midfield, observing the game a bit more. I felt like he was doing that a lot better. He was able to observe the game a bit more. He had a bit more time on the ball to pick out his passes as well. So it just looked like it suited him a bit more, just playing a slightly deeper role as opposed to playing up front. So I've gave him 6 out of 10. And Timo Werner, let's finish on Timo. The fans love him. They chant his name every time he comes on or he touches the ball, but I'm just going to be realistic. I don't think he's got, not to say he hasn't got a career at Chelsea. I just don't know if he's the fit for Chelsea. There's something that just doesn't fit when it comes to Timo. He works really hard, you know, on and off the ball. He makes the right runs. I've said on here before, you know, that there's a lot of the things that he does off the ball that I credit him for, and I still do. But in terms of what we want from him, which is goals, he just doesn't do it. You know, he doesn't do it enough. He's not effective enough in games. There's obviously something that Tuchel's seeing. I don't think he started a Premier League game since potentially maybe December. I think he played in some of the League Cup games as well, FA Cup as well. But he's not someone that, when he doesn't play, we don't miss him, you know. And I think if we lose a Kai Havertz or we lose a Hakim Ziyech in the form that they're in at the moment, we would miss them. So, you know, I gave him a 4. I think even that's probably generous to him, but I think, you know, he's someone that it's a shame for him because it hasn't worked out. You know, you look at even like a Lukaku against Palace, you know, still being on the pitch, and you've got Timo Werner on the bench. It kind of tells you that, you know, if you're allowing someone who's touched the ball 7 times to stay on the pitch and has not had a sniff at goal, and you're still sat on the bench, it kind of tells you that the manager doesn't trust you to play in that role and hasn't saved you for the Champions League game because you didn't even come on, or you didn't start the game. You just came on as a sub. So yeah, I think his days might be numbered. It's a shame for him, but it's still, I mean, he's still young. He's still young. He can go back to the Bundesliga. He can go, you know, to Serie A and do something there as well. So, you know, he's definitely got a lot of football in him. He's a very, very good footballer. I just don't think he's good enough. And doesn't fit into the system that Chelsea are trying to play. And again, that might come down to the consistency, the thing that we haven't had, the lack of consistency up front. But he just doesn't strike me as someone that will break into the team over the next couple of months. So we'll have to see with Timo, but I gave him a 4, which I think is justified. But if you don't agree with any of those ratings, please let me know in the comments as well, because I think, you know, I do this all for you guys. I make sure that, you know, we put out some content as much as we can. So subscribe to the channel. I know there's a lot of you that are, you know, watching the videos, but you're not necessarily subscribed. During apparently analytics are telling me that there's 66% of you that are watching the videos but are not subscribed to the channel. So can you hit the like button, smash the subscribe button, let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you check out our Spotify or Apple podcast. It's called From the Shed End. Just give it a search on Apple or Spotify. You'll be able to find it. We've got a weekly podcast that myself and Theo does as well. And of course we do live streams as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channels. Make sure you subscribe to everything. All the links will be in the description below for our social accounts as well, so make sure you follow them. And this has been From the Shed End. TDOT myself. As always, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe.